Welcome, one and all, to another episode of Pacific 4 and 4 episode reviews. I am your host, Mike, and today I'm going to be reviewing episode 6 of WandaVision, all new Halloween Spectacular. And after I give you a spoiler review, an overall reaction review of this episode, I will also let you know where I stand as far as the news of Gina Carano, but that will come after I give you this review. So, this episode starts off and contains a lot of the clips we'd already seen in the promotional videos for WandaVision. We see Vision in his original costume from the comics. We also see Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, in her Scarlet Witch costume. And we also see Pietro Quicksilver in his original costume, along with Billy and Tommy wearing their respected costumes, at least for the episode's concerned. So, this episode starts off with everybody getting ready for Halloween, and with it being the morning of Halloween or afternoon at this time, the boys are trying to get to know their uncle, Pietro, at least the Pietro from the X-Men universe. And, they're commenting on him, how he even snores cool. He plays some video games with his nephews, and WandaVision ended the scene, in their respective costumes. The boys and Pedro are making noise. Wanda comes downstairs, says somebody better be bleeding or dying to make all that noise, and she's wearing, of course, Scarlet Witch costume, at least a costume inspired by the original comic design, as is Vision. And another thing about this episode, and if you haven't watched my reviews before, I go back and forth. But another thing about this episode is it had an intro which was very much like Malcolm in the Middle, and even one of the twins starts off like Malcolm would, talking to the camera, talking to the audience, and giving them a heads up on what's going on while the other characters just stand in the background. So, we have that going. And also in this episode, Vision mentions that he's going to be patrolling the neighborhood during Halloween because, again, it's Halloween, which is why everybody's in a costume. And, you know, he tells her that, and her being Wanda, that he's not going to be trick or treating with her or the boys because of the neighborhood watch. And, of course, Wanda's disappointed, and, she's disappointed because she and Vision usually talk over things and they usually agree on things. But in this case, Vision is picking up after episode 5 and trying to find out what's going on as far as, Westview is concerned. So, Wanda, Quicksilver, and the boys go out and start trick or treating. Pietro starts showing them different ways to trick or treat. Even before they go out to trick or treat, there's a flashback with young Pietro and Wanda as they're trick or treating back in Sokovia, and they're getting fish from this old woman. But while they're on the streets doing trick or treating, we see Herb, who's dressed up as a Frankenstein monster, and they get to talking, and they come to find out that Vision's not on the neighborhood watch team, and Herb is. So that raises an eyebrow for Wanda. Meanwhile, Pietro and the boys are getting candy. They're taking it out of other trick or treaters' bags, and they're smashing pumpkins or spraying silly string on people. Just getting into all sorts of mischief because of Quicksilver's speed. Meanwhile, Vision's walking through other parts of town, other parts of different neighborhoods, and there's also the street they're not supposed to go down. I believe it was Eastview. They're not supposed to go down this street because, spoiler, that's where the barrier separates Westview from the real world as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe is concerned. And what ends up happening is Vision ends up finding Agnes there after, walking these neighborhoods and seeing that people are standing still. And they're barely moving, if moving at all. It's suspended animation, is what it is. And, he's walking through and he sees this car, and inside this car is Agnes. And he manages to get Agnes out of this trance where she's able to talk, and she's also able to break her briefly for Wanda's spell, where the person who Agnes actually is begins to talk. She mentions that Vision is one of the Avengers and that Vision is dead, and that puzzles Vision. And he proceeds to put her back into this trance and make his way toward the barrier. Meanwhile, Director Hayward, Monica Rambeau, and then Darcy and Jimmy, they're going over things, and what ends up happening is, in Hayward's mind, Monica ends up stepping over her boundaries, and also Jimmy and Darcy are booted from the team because they begin to ask questions as to what's going on. There are things that aren't adding up, and Hayward refuses to answer those questions, and because they're questioning him, he boots him from the team. So it kind of plays into certain things that have always gone on. You start asking questions, people want to shut you up. So then what ends up happening is Darcy, Monica Rambeau, and Jimmy Woo are kicked out of the sword facility. They're kicked out of the whole mission. And Monica's even told that she's unfit for this mission, and her mother would be greatly disappointed in her. So then Jimmy, Darcy, and Monica come up with a plan to go back in to the base so they can hack Hayward's computer to find out what's really going on. They end up going undercover in sword gear, and they end up finding out that Hayward is using Vision as his basically inside man to find out what's going on, because there's a deuterium or uranium, whatever the alloy signature was. It's a degrading signature, and Vision's the beacon. So Vision's Hayward's eyes and ears inside the barrier. And they see that Vision is making his way toward the barrier. They try to get all the information they can. Hayward's up to real shitty stuff. And what ends up happening inside the barrier is, as the boys discover their powers, Tommy ends up finding out that he has faster than light speed, just like Pietro. And Billy can also sense people's thoughts. And this comes into play because at one point, Vision ends up breaking the barrier between Westview and the real world. And as he's emerging from this barrier, the barrier, of course, is restraining him, holding him back. Vision is fighting it off and struggling to get out. And of course, Sword's not helping him at all. They're letting him suffer as he's being torn apart. And, you know, once again, on the verge of dying because this barrier has a pull on it because of Wanda creating this whole area. And even in this episode, Pietro mentions that one moment he's shot and killed in Sokovia, and we see, the clip from Avengers Age of Ultron where he's killed, and then the next moment he's here and he starts questioning Wanda even more. Wanda doesn't like his questions, so she uses her powers to blast him, knocking him out. And as Vision's being torn apart, pieces of Vision, are flying practically back toward the barrier. It's Billy who senses that Vision is in trouble, and this is when she starts glowing her red eyes, gets angry, and increases the power of the barrier to not only save Vision, but take every member of Sword inside the barrier with her, except for Hayward and a few others who are in the SUV who just barely survive. Because Darcy ends up inside this barrier. I believe Jimmy and Monica ended up in this barrier. I could be wrong, but there's only a small group of people, and they're with Hayward who have survived Monica's onslaught of increasing the power of this barrier. And everybody who is now inside this barrier is part of a circus act. There's clown cars, agents are turned into clowns, all sorts of different circus associated factors, and it's a carnival basically. So that's pretty much what ends up happening. The shit hits the fan and things are really screwed up. And what did I think of this episode? I didn't think it was half bad, but I still feel that they could have done a few things better. They could have had Darcy on the verge of saying, "Oh fuck," but they didn't. And we'll find out more in episode 7. I again didn't think this episode was half bad, but now I'm gonna end my spoiler review of WandaVision, and I'm gonna set the table pretty much to let you know my thoughts on the whole Gina Carano thing and where I stand on Gina Carano. And if you haven't already figured it out, I do stand with Gina Carano, and I'm going to tell you why. You can make any kind of comment you want in the comment section, but I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because history proves that when those who were persecuted, and 6 million of them were killed during the Holocaust, during World War II, which began in 1933, really picked up in 1939, the only Allied force that was involved during that time, other than the French, were the British. And the US didn't come into the war actively until 1941. Yes, we were sending supplies and equipment in support of the Brits during World War II. Let's not forget that. But let's also not forget the fact that when the Nazi regime took over Germany, they were using propaganda to change the view of the people against another group of people. It did happen. Labels were put on them. They had to wear stars of David to identify themselves in the concentration camps. If any of them had gold teeth, they were melted down. The people of this faith, of the Jewish faith, were persecuted, and they have been persecuted for a very long time. And I don't care who it is, what it is, it's not right. And I know I swore I'd never get political in this, but I saw Gina Carano's post. It was alluding to the fact, and this is true, you can look it up, that neighbor turned against neighbor. And it was the propaganda that was being spread through Hitler's regime that caused this to happen. Very few people that we know of stood up, but those that did, they stood up against it, and some of them paid their lives for it. Meanwhile, those who were in the concentration camps, guess what? Those that survived had memories that scarred them for life. We need to make sure now and in the future that no atrocity is ever committed again. No matter how many people think, or don't think that the Holocaust was a hoax, we need to make sure that atrocities do not happen again. Atrocities against humanity do not happen again. And that's all she was trying to say. That people who were labeled and persecuted back in World War II, well, that should have never been allowed. People should have stood up, and some people did, and it cost them their lives. People sought shelter and were denied shelter because of their religion, and that's not right. It's not right to discriminate against anyone against their creed or their religion. And if you want to come at me, because I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this to you right now. I know what it's like to be discriminated against. I have cerebral palsy, and I have had many a people look down upon me and tell me I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, guess what? I can do whatever I set my heart and my mind to. And you should never put down anyone because of their religion, because of their faith, because of their political beliefs. So what if they have a different belief than you? So what if their political views are different than you? We are who we are. And if you don't like it, well, then maybe you need to do some soul searching. Because not everyone's the same. We don't all look alike. We don't all think alike. And this nonsense needs to stop. I am sick of it. I am sick of what's happened to this country. We have been turned against each other, and it's ridiculous. I am so damn tired of it. I know people, both in my personal life and in friendships, throughout all my life, who have served this country. And I am proud to know those people. I am proud to know people who are EMTs, firefighters, paramedics, police officers. I am proud of that. My father was a police officer, and he did his job to the best of his ability. He would stop and help people because that's how he was raised. He was raised to help people no matter who they were, and he would. He even helped a friend of mine who was being jumped by a couple of thugs on his way home from work one day. He saw that my friend was being attacked, and he came out and he helped my friend get out of there. And my friend was very appreciative. And guess what? That friend was black. And Another thing, in case you missed it a few weeks ago, TKO, my other friend, my co host on Sunday Night Frontiers, he's black as well. And he's more like a brother to me than anyone. So don't even dare say I'm racist. Don't even think that I'm racist because he is more like a brother than you will ever know. He is like blood to me. Why? Because our friendship goes way beyond our skin color. It goes way beyond Star Trek. It goes way beyond anything you could ever know. Because we don't just have similar likes, even the things that we don't agree on, we're able to talk about it. And that's all that needs to be done these days. Have some discourse, you know, have a discussion with people. You don't like their point of view? Fine, move on. But at least find out why they stand where they stand. If you still don't like it, again, fine, move on. That's what people need to do. We need to move on. We need to work together. I know there are people who don't want to work together, but we need to do that. We need to do that not only for this country, but for ourselves. We need to work together and see that we have more in common than we have different. I have friends on both sides of the political spectrum. I see posts from them that I don't agree with, but I don't go on their personal social media pages and go into all caps mode and go off on them because I don't agree with them. A lot of times I just keep on scrolling, keep on scrolling. But if I do have something to say, I will get my point across in a civil manner. And if we still don't agree, fine. We don't agree on politics. Fine. There's plenty more for us to, have in common. But the way politics have been used to tear apart this country, I am sick of it. The way politics have been used to tear apart entertainment, something that's supposed to be an escape for all of us, I am sick of it. I am sick of what's happened to Star Trek. I am sick of what's happened to Doctor Who. I am sick of what's happened to Star Wars. I am sick of it. We are better than this. We are fucking better than this. As a people. And I'm not talking about one group or another. I'm talking as a whole. As a people of this planet Earth. We are better than this. And if you don't think we are, fine. But I know in my heart we are better than this. And we need to be better than what we are now. Because that's the only way we're going to get past this. We're only going to get past this by working together. I see people who are thrilled that Gina Carano was fired. Why? Why would you be thrilled that somebody lost their livelihood? What if it were you? What if it were you? Put yourself in their shoes. What if you lost your job just because of your personal views? I mean, right now, we could all use a job. In this current climate, there are very few people who are actually working right now compared to those who aren't working. And there are very few businesses open right now because they aren't able to open and those people aren't able to work. So enough of this bullshit. And yeah, okay. So I'm gonna get shadow banned. A small channel of 14 subscribers, a small channel of 28 followers on Twitch is probably gonna get shadow banned, probably gonna get canceled. I don't care. I need to say what I need to say, and I'm gonna say it. I am sick of this crap. We are all brothers and sisters on this planet, and we need to work together. You know, I was told in life that if there's something you don't like and you want to change it, work to change it. But you don't go out destroying property. You don't go out destroying somebody's livelihood. You work to change it in the legal system. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but you work to change it. You don't like a law? Work to change it. And that's what we need to do. We need to work to change, and what that change needs to be is actually working together. Don't listen to the propaganda that's being told by one side or another, because both sides do it. Don't tell me one side's better than the other, because they're not. They are not. They are not. They will use us, they will divide us, they will manipulate us. They will get you to think like the hive mind thinks, because it fits their agenda. Both parties do it. We have seen it the last 4 years, last 8 years, last 12 years. Heck, we've seen it since this country was founded. We've seen it throughout all of history. Politics has a way of screwing with people's minds. And we need to start thinking for ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why I support Gina Carano. She's a free thinker. She thinks for herself. She doesn't think what I think. She doesn't think what you think or anyone else thinks. She thinks for herself. And to have the ability to think for yourself as, you know, a great content of one's character to have. It tells me a lot about you if you're able to think for yourself. You know, see a news article and go, okay, okay, I need to read this from another source. Because again, every source is going to tell you something differently on the same story. And what I was told growing up was, you know, read everything in the article, but don't be afraid to question half of it, and then question the other half of it, and then still question the story after that. Find out more resources and more sources of the story, because everyone's going to publish that same story just a little bit differently. And yeah, you can even bring up George Orwell, 1984, and Animal Farm. Well, some of those things are happening. Like it or not, some of these things are happening. And what we need to do as, you know, a society is learn to work together, learn to put our differences aside. You may, you know, look at me and go, "Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about." You may look at someone else and say the same thing, but you know what? In the long term of things, the only way we're all going to make, you know, anything work is by working together. You know, you could be a Cardinal fan. I'm a Cub fan. You know, we could disagree on that. We could disagree on whose team is better. But you know what we have in common? You know that one common thing that we have? We have a love of baseball. We may not like each other's team, but that love of baseball is what brings us together. That love of baseball is what binds us together. Love of sports is what binds us together. Love of, you know, pop culture is what binds us together. So, you know, people are going on and on about saying this person's bad, that person's bad. Why don't you take the time to get to know the person? And after getting to know the person, if you still think they're bad, fine. But take the time to get to know somebody before you know. before you place judgment on them. Because whether you believe in, God or any other higher power, even if you don't believe in a higher power, you know, there's only one person that can judge you, you know, and that's God. If you don't believe in God, well, then the only person that can account for you, that can judge you, is you. You're the only person that can answer for your actions, for what you say, for what you do. And what Gina Carano did by pointing out a factual part of history, that's not to be, you know, that's not to be jumped upon with ravenous rage and told that she's wrong and she's this and that. She's this is that is this phobe, that phobe. You don't need to do that. You know, maybe ask her a question. Why do you feel this way? And then get her answer. Get a dialogue. I realize people don't want to do that nowadays. They just want to jump to conclusions a lot of time. But, you know, part of what I was saying before about creating, you know, discourse, you know, dialogue, communication, that's what we need to do. The only way we can understand each other's differences is by communicating and learning about each other's differences and, trying to, you know, find some common ground. And you may not even find any common ground. And you know what? If you don't, you don't. That's not up to me. That's solely up to you. Whether you're going to find common ground with someone or not. But I'm just so sick of this crap. I am so sick of seeing every day people calling other people they don't even know online names. You know, saying that you believe in this when they don't even know the person's beliefs. You know, me myself, I'm an independent. I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican. I'm an independent. I look at both sides and try to make, my best judgment, my best determination as far as what's the best thing for me to do and, you know, who's gonna, tell me what, you know, it's gonna be happening, how they're gonna handle things. And, you know, like I said, I'm just so sick of this division. I really am. I really and truly am sick of this division that we see, not just in the political spectrum, but, pop culture. You know, Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, yeah, we could rip each other all we want about which, franchise is the better franchise. One's a television franchise that went into movies, one's a movie franchise that went into television. But you know what? They're both good. I'll admit, I'm still more of a fan of Star Trek than I am of Star Wars. Star Trek was my first love, but I appreciate Star Wars for what it is. It's an escape, it's fantasy, it's not reality. Star Trek, an escape, fantasy, it's not real life. Real life is when you see someone that you love and they lose their life, and you see the light in their eyes go out, and you see them take their last breath for the final time. That's part of real life. Is people who you're close to, you cherish them while they're here because you never know when they're going to be gone. And if anyone you meet is trying to teach you a lesson, and I'm not saying a lesson in a bad way, but they're trying to teach you something, learn from them because you never know when another person will come along to help teach you something you've never known before. So, you know, enough of this crap. And as far as doing any further reviews of WandaVision or any MCU content is concerned. I am going to continue since my subscription doesn't expire for a while. I'm not going to tell you when, but it doesn't expire for a while. And I will continue to review the shows I have already planned on reviewing, I wanted to review. And I will give you my thoughts and opinions on those episodes, whether you like them or not, and that's entirely up to you. That's entirely up to you. If you just agree with me, well, guess what? I have social media links on both the Twitch page and the YouTube page. Hit me up on there. And I will respond. If you don't like what I have to say, that's fine. That's fine. But I am just so sick of what's happening to people. You know, you know. Like I said, I have friends who are on the other side of the fence, political friends, and you know what? I see what they say, and I just scroll on. If I, want to chime in, I chime in. But I don't tell them, how they should think. No, they have their own minds, and these are people I have known for a very long time, and they're allowed to think the way they want to think. Whether I think it's wrong, well, you know what? That's my opinion. That's my opinion whether I think something's right. That's my opinion whether I think something's wrong. Because guess what? We all have different points of view. We all have different points of view. And you'll get mine, especially when the baseball season starts. When I start doing the box score again after a Cub game. The Cubs do good, I will praise them like I've always praised them. Cubs do, something stupid in the game, even if they win, I'll still point it out. Cubs lose a game they shouldn't have lost, I'll point that out. Cubs lose a game because lack of hitting, lack of pitching, I'll point that out. I won't hold back. I I am who I am. I can't change. If you want to teach me something, then I'm willing to learn. But, as far as what's been going on for quite a while now, it's just gotten old. It's gotten old, and it's sad to see that it's leaked into entertainment. And entertainment's supposed to be an escape. And again, like I said, I do support Gina Carano, and I support her for having her own individual opinion. I know that talking about the whole Holocaust is a very touchy subject, and I understand wholeheartedly why it's a very touchy subject. Trust me, I do. But with the way things are going now, can you blame anyone? No. No, can you blame anyone for stating their point of view? You group a certain sector of society all together, even if they do vote one way or another way, you say that they're all linked together. No, that's not true. That's not true. I I know several people who, may have liked one candidate for one reason, but they don't like him for another reason. And, there are many factors as to why people vote. And, it's just gotten sickening. It really has. And again, like I said, you can say what you want to say in the comments. It's fine. Let's create some dialogue. Let's have some discourse. But and I am using my platform to say this, but you know, let's grow up. Let's be adults. Let's work together. Because I, for one, am sick of this. And that's pretty much all I've got for you. I think I've said my piece. And again, if you disagree with me, that's fine. You know, leave something in the comments and, you know, let's just communicate. So, thank you all for tuning in and watching, leaving comments, and I will hopefully see you later. And if you want to unsubscribe from the channel, unfollow the Twitch channel, well, that's your choice. But I appreciate each and every one of you who have subscribed. I appreciate each and every one of you who have followed. And I appreciate anyone who's followed me on social media. Thank you very much. And even if you disagree with me, you know, on this video, but there are other videos that you like, fine. Again, let's create a dialogue. Because I, for one, am very sick of what's been going on. And again, I support Gina Carano